On August 12, 2017, hundreds of protesters marched through the University of Virginia to protest against the removal of pro-slavery Confederate General Robert E. Lee's statue from a park. However, this was not the first protest over it. After Charlottesville voted for the removal of the statue early this year, white nationalist leaders had protested against the decision multiple times. In May 2017, white nationalist leader Richard Spencer arrived at the statue for a night protest with his supporters. A month later, close to 50 members of a North Carolina-based Ku Klux Klan group traveled to Charlotte for a rally where they were met by thousands of counter-protesters. Current rally was named as Unite the Right Rally by white supremacists and was described as one of the largest white supremacist events in the recent US history. This was organized by Jason Kessler, a former journalist and a member of the Proud Boys, an ultra-nationalist group. The white nationalists and the counter-protesters dramatically clashed within the Virginia city, prompting a state of emergency to be declared after a young woman was killed by a car that plowed into the group of pedestrians. Since the happening of this tragic event, a chorus of US politicians from both the parties have expressed their outrage, labeling the hit-and-run crash an act of domestic terrorism and condemning white nationalists as unpatriotic and enemies of the freedom. Among those professing this disdain for the event were numerous senators, including Lindsey Graham, Bong Menendez, Marco Rubio, Chuck Schumer, and John McCain. They, along with a host of other congressmen and former presidents, condemned the white nationalists as un-American against the American values, with some specifically labeling the car crash a terror attack.
Pathetic, isn't it? Just pathetic listening to this. President Trump needs to listen to the people before he takes this presidency in a place that is not acceptable for our country.
These groups seem to believe they have a friend in Donald Trump in the White House. I don't know why they believe that, but they don't see me as a friend in the Senate, and I would urge the president to dissuade these groups that he's their friend.
Isn't a time for innuendo or to allow room to be read between the lines. This is a time to lay blame on bigotry, to lay blame on white supremacists, on white nationalism, and on hatred.
I think the outrage across the political spectrum about this is maybe the thing that ultimately unites us.
I think the president was wrong yesterday. There was one side and one side only, and we have to condemn anti-Semitism, racism, white supremacy, the Ku Klux Klan, and I do so.
Other notable political figures such as former Secretary of State and 2016 presidential candidate Hillary Clinton and former President Barack Obama also condemned the attack via social media. However, Trump's response to the Charlottesville chaos was not the first time he appeared hesitant to condemn white supremacists. It took more than 48 hours, but finally he denounced the white supremacist groups whose rally in Charlottesville, Virginia sparked deadly violence.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
Trump's proclamation that racism is evil means little coming from a man who largely has not been backed away from the racism upon which he built upon his whole campaign and his real estate business. According to the Washington Post, Donald Trump has usually been very quick in the past to condemn incidents when the perpetrator was thought to be Muslim. The Post highlighted that Donald Trump's tweet about the terrorist attacks in Paris in November 2015 about 3.5 hours after they occurred. He also tweeted about the mass shooting in California only 90 minutes after the violence began. when terrorists drove a van into a crowd on London Bridge, Trump tweeted about the need to be smart, vigilant and tough even before authorities identified terrorism as the motive behind the attack. They also noted that it took Trump several days to praise two men who were fatally stabbed trying to defend women from Islamophobia racist rants on train in Portland, Oregon, and also mentioned the president's deafening silence on the bombing of a Minnesota mosque in August 2017, which still hangs in the socio-political scenario. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, out of 900 hate crime incidents in the first 10 days following Donald Trump's election, the Southern Poverty Law Center found that people explicitly invoked Trump's name as the campaign slogan in at least 40% of these hate crimes. The Charlottesville protests are not the first time that Donald Trump has failed to condemn white supremacists publicly. During a national interview with CNN, State of the Union anchor Jack Tapper in February 2017 said Donald Trump failed 3 different times during the CNN interview to condemn former Ku Klux Klan leader David Duke, who had recently told his right-wing radio audience that voting for any candidate other than Trump would be treason to your white heritage.
Condemn David Duke and say that you don't want his vote or that of other white supremacists in this election?
Well, just so you understand, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know, did he endorse me or what's going on? Because, you know, I know nothing about David Duke. I know nothing about white supremacists. And so you're asking me a question that I'm supposed to be talking about people that I know nothing about.
But I guess the question from the Anti-Defamation League is, even if you don't know about their endorsement, there are these groups and individuals endorsing you. Would you just say unequivocally you condemn them and you don't want their support?
Well, I have to look at the group. I mean, I don't know what group you're talking about. You wouldn't want me to condemn a group that I know nothing about. I'd have to look. If you would send me a list of the groups, I will do research on them, and certainly I would disavow if I thought there was something wrong. But you may have groups in there that are totally fine, and it would be very unfair. So give me a list of the groups, and I'll let you know.
Okay. I mean, I'm just talking about David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan here, but...
I don't know, honestly, I don't know David Duke. I don't believe I've ever met him. I'm pretty sure I didn't meet him, and I just don't know anything about him.
Public figures in Israel, Germany, the United Kingdom and elsewhere have also condemned President Donald Trump's latest remarks on the white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, in which he laid blame on both sides for the deadly violence that erupted. German Justice Minister Heiko Maas directly criticized Trump in a statement early Wednesday, saying, "It is unbearable how Trump now also glosses over the violence during the march of the right-wing protest in Charlottesville. Nobody should trivialize the anti-Semitism and racism of neo-Nazis. When it comes to right-wing propaganda and violence, there is nothing to relativize. All Democrats should together take a clear stance against it." UK Prime Minister Theresa May disputed the idea that the two sides in the Charlottesville violence were equally to blame, a Downing Street spokesman told CNN. "I see no equivalence between those who propound fascist views and those who oppose them," May said at a naval ceremony in Portsmouth, England. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu only commented after Trump condemned racism and neo-Nazism in his tweet, saying, "Outraged by expressions of anti-Semitism, neo-Nazism and racism, everyone should oppose this hatred." U.S. Secretary General Antonio Guterres strongly condemned this violence by tweeting that racism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia are poisoning our societies. We must stand up against them every time, everywhere. The Council on American Islamic Relations is speaking out against the violence in Virginia. CAIR's Northwest Florida Regional Coordinator Hibar Rahim said this is an issue involving American patriotism. The CAIR definitely stands by all victims of discrimination. In this case, this is not a Muslim-related issue. This is an American issue. This is an issue of patriotism, and we have to stand by our nation and stand in defense of all victims, no matter whether they are minority or not. In this case, we had a white woman who died as a result of these tragic incidents, Rahim said. She also said this is a time for the people to speak out against the hatred and bigotry.